Welcome everyone to the invitation, The Art of Facilitation, where we bring on all of our program directors and facilitators throughout the world. And today we are so lucky to be joined by Kristin Varner. So everyone, please give her a warm welcome, sending her many blessings. I'll read her bio, and then she's going to lead us in a short centering practice. And this is a really heartfelt, kind of personal statement. Kristin loves yoga and loves sharing what she loves. After practicing yoga and law for 2 decades, she combined her passion for yoga and advocacy to co-found Community Yoga Initiative to help expand the reach of yoga through affordable, accessible, and inclusive yoga outreach programs. The heart of her yoga practice rests in the cultivation of awareness and love to discover and let go of ways of being that limit freedom. Embodied presence and energetic perception are central to Kristin's sharing of yoga. Through the Prison Yoga Project, Kristin shares yoga with people housed at the California Rehabilitation Center in Norco, California. She leads yoga and meditation programs for youth, college athletes, nonprofit organizations, and workplaces in Southern California, and currently instructs yoga for the United States men's Olympic water polo team. She's grateful for her parents and her brother, Jerry, Lynn, and Andy, and her daughters, Peyton and Devin, all of whom are among her greatest teachers. She's thankful beyond measure for the love of her family, friends, community, and her partner in life, Sean, who will make it easy to love and be loved. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Blair, for having me. So nice. Thank you for that introduction, and thanks, Bill.
And when that feels complete for you, I welcome you to lead us in a centering opportunity.
Okay, you got me a little bit. I didn't know that was going to be read, and just those shout outs to the family made me a little emotional. So I appreciate that, though. That's really beautiful. I thought we might start with a little loving kindness this morning. It happens to be a practice that I just feel really rooted in and connected to. And there's lots of ways you can practice, as you all know, various ways of loving kindness, offering metta. And I thought what we do today, I like to use 4 sentences, 4 phrases, and it can be directed at, all different ways. But I thought what we might do today is direct these 4 phrases to a loved one. So having that warmth, loved ones in our hearts, what you just mentioned, and then to ourselves. And then I thought we could just direct the love and kindness to this community, just this Prison Yoga Project community. So I just love this practice because I feel like it creates favorable conditions for love and care and compassion to arise. And it creates kind of a sense of connectedness. So the phrases I will be using today are, may I be filled with love and kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be free. And that can be free from harm, inner and outer harm. Any kind of freedom that feels intuitive to you that you feel. So we'll just go ahead and start by kind of settling in, finding your comfortable seated position if that feels good to you, or maybe you feel better standing. Just any kind of posture where you feel kind of a sense of dignity and ease, a sense of comfort. Then you may want to rest your eyes or lower your eyes, just move from the external inward. I invite you just to have a sense of the base of your body. So maybe if that's seated, at the base of the body is seated on the floor, on a chair. Maybe if it's standing or seated, maybe you feel the feet connected to the floor, very rooted and grounded. And as you feel connected and grounded to the earth, you might feel a sense of lightness through your lower back, like a sense of lifting. And I invite you to just maybe roll your shoulders back and down. Allow the elbows to hang heavy, the arms to feel weighted down towards the earth. And you might notice that as your shoulders roll back and down, your heart lifts out to the world. And if you notice any tension in your face, you might part your lips and relax your jaw and soften the eyes. And then maybe turning the awareness to the breath. You've gotten a sense of the body and now how the breath moves in the body, just noticing. Maybe you notice the breath as it moves in the nose. And maybe you notice your heart rise on an inhale. So just noticing the breath in the body. And maybe just resting the attention at the heart space and how the breath feels at the heart. Maybe notice a sense of openness and expansion as you inhale in the heart area. And a sense of the heart just kind of falling towards the body on an exhale. So just taking a few moments here and resting in the inhale and exhale and bringing the awareness of how it feels at the heart. I invite you to bring an image to your mind's eye of someone that you love, someone the moment you think about them just makes you feel good. And maybe it's a family member or could be a spiritual figure or a beloved teacher. Maybe it's a fur baby in your life or a child. Just can be anyone for whom you have deep affection. Just bringing this person to your mind's eye as if they're with you right now. Maybe you can sense the warmth of their smile or the kindness in their eyes. Just having a sense of this person with you right now. I invite you to offer this person love and kindness. May this person that I love be filled with love and kindness. May my loved one be well. May they be peaceful and at ease. And may they be free. And I invite you just imagine any felt sense of love move from your heart center out to this person, wherever they may be. And I invite you to hold a picture in your mind's eye of yourself and maybe a younger self, like a 5 or 7-year-old self, a childlike self, maybe imagining what you look like when you were that age and what you might be doing. what you were curious about then. And remembering that that childlike self still resides in us, even though we look different, or maybe doing different things, have different worries, and have gone through different phases of life. So just carrying an image of yourself as a younger self, I invite you to offer that same love and kindness that you shared with your loved one to yourself. So that inner childlike self that still resides within. May I be filled with love and kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. And may I be free. And I invite you to notice just any felt sense at your heart center, any sensations you feel in your body, or your heart center, or anywhere else in the body. And I invite you to bring to your mind's eye a sense of this community. Blair and Bill and James, Nicole, all the people who lead this community and the people who participate, the students who are taking the classes, the facilitators who are working in institutions, just bringing a sense, an image of all these people involved in this community. Imagining them in your mind's eye, how you've connected with them in the past, how that's felt to you. And I invite us all to wish this community well. May our community be filled with love and kindness. May this community be well. May we all be peaceful and at ease. And may each one of us know freedom. And I invite you to just imagine any felt sense of love just move out from your body to the people in this community, wherever they are. And let's all just take a few moments to rest in these feelings of love and kindness. Just noticing any sensations of the body, the feeling of the breath. Just taking a few moments just to notice. And then when you're ready, I just invite you to maybe bring some movement to your fingers and toes. Maybe a little movement to the head and neck. Just to gently come back to our meeting together. Thank you.
The radical softness and ease that you were like a shepherd bringing us to is so valuable. That was incredibly beautiful. Thank you.
Very kind words. Thank you, Blair. It's always so sweet.
We usually start with, what is your first memory of yoga? But I want to switch it up a little bit. What is your first memory of meditation or mindfulness? What was your first experience with that?
Oh God, that's such a great question. Well, like first memory, I've actually never thought about the first, but I started practicing a lot after my father passed away about 15 years ago. And I've told this story before, that I came to meditation. I had experimented with a lot of different types of meditation. So like breath awareness and some body scanning type things. And about 15 years ago, after my father died, I was introduced to loving kindness by a beautiful woman, Mary Grace McNaughton. And it just hit me, you know, in the heart. And it was something that I became really drawn to. And I just couldn't shake it. And so I started practicing a lot of that meditation. So I would say, yeah, that was probably my, you know, my regular practice of meditation was that. I'm kind of like a study bug, you know, so I always found like ruminating and contemplating on things. I thought that was like my meditation for a long time, for years. But I didn't really get into like sort of a silent sit practice until about 15 years ago. But that's kind of where it started for me. That's where it began. And I've shared with other people that, you know, I was really looking for something. I was looking to feel better. I was, you know, kind of confused about, you know, existential questions and dealing with a lot of grief, with the loss of my dad and sickness in different ways. So that's where I found meditation very helpful. And that's where I started. And then it really grew from a loving kindness practice to more of what we would call Vipassana practice. And I combine a lot of loving kindness and Vipassana and concentration all together in one crazy meditation when I said.
Yeah, will you tell us more about your personal practice and how it's informed this beginning of yours as well?
Yeah, I love to talk about yoga. I love to talk about practice. So thanks for that question. So my personal practice has evolved. You know, I got into yoga mostly for exercise. You know, maybe 20 years ago. And I got into yoga when I was pregnant. And I was just looking for some sort of gentle exercise. I had been a runner because I'm not a very coordinated person. So I could run though. And I have this like ability to have endurance. And so I felt like if I could do something, I will run. So I was always a runner. And I felt like yoga was like kind of a joke, like exercise wise. Like I was like, where is the value in this? But so I was pregnant. So it really took me down a notch. And I've told this funny story where I went to my first yoga class and I was pregnant and they had me in like eagle arms and eagle legs. And I was like falling all over the place. My very first yoga class, right when I moved to Riverside, we just got married. I was pregnant and it was totally awful. Like I felt like I couldn't do it. Wasn't, you know, didn't feel good at all. So I practiced at home during my pregnancy. And I had a video and I didn't know it was a bhakti yoga video. I had no idea what kinds of yoga there was or what it even meant. And so it was this beautiful devotional kind of yin practice with beautiful music. And I did that through my pregnancy and that kind of got me hooked. And then I got kind of aggressive with the yoga and I went, you know, full power, like hot yoga for a decade, which, you know, was also awesome. And I probably needed that to balance out my brain and, you know, how much was going on during those also hard hitting years in sort of the legal world and being a mom of two daughters. And that moved from there to kind of starting meditation, you know, and moving into meditation. And after my mother died, I had been interested in wellness and interested in helping people who were ill. And that's where I thought I would be facilitating yoga. I really never thought I would be facilitating yoga in prison institutions. I really, my vision of where I was going to be was in hospitals, because that's what I was really drawn to. So it's funny how you never know what's going to happen. But I had this idea that the breath and breathing could really help people who were facing terminal illness and chronic illness. And so I wanted to know more about it, and I wanted to get better at sharing it. And so I took yoga teacher training, and that just led to a whole other path. I could just keep going and going,
Yeah,
but I'm not
going.
sure.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, keep
We're
going.
here. We're here. Yep.
I'm like, where am I? So when I took yoga teacher training, it was transformative experience. It changed my life. I mean, it was already sort of had tidbits going in that direction, interested in sharing yoga and knowing more about it. And really the purpose of doing the yoga teacher training for me was so that I would be able to facilitate in hospital settings. It's really what I wanted to do. And then I just started loving yoga even more. And it just, I don't know, it's like yoga did a thing. It's like I felt like I didn't have a choice anymore. And the more the more I learned about yoga, the more I wanted to learn about yoga. And then I started sort of sharing yoga to teacher level. And then I realized I never wanted to be a teacher ever. My mother was the most amazing teacher. She was a grade school teacher. She's like this amazing teacher. I have a totally different kind of personality. And I thought, I'm never a teacher. This is not what I do. And I will not share in that way. And what happened was I started sharing yoga with other people, like more in like they were going to learn to share with other people, be teachers. And I couldn't believe how much I was learning. I was like, I'm learning so much by sharing it. And it just blew me away. And so being like a lifelong learner, and I just was so filled up by that. I was so selfish, I was just like, wow, I'm really like sharing this because I'm really like sharing it with myself, and I'm growing in myself. And so that's been what's happened. And so I was just kind of looking for yoga in all different places. And for me, it's living the yoga in as many moments as possible. It's not on the mat. It's not sitting in meditation. It's just can life be the practice? I feel like life is the practice. And so that's what yoga is for me now, is just, how many moments of the day can I reside with what is and realize what, where my ego's at play, where my fears are coming up, where the pain's coming up, how much can I witness that, and deal with it, in healthful, loving ways. And it's a total challenge, so, so that's the long, weird answer, I guess.
No, we like long, weird answers. That's what we're here for, right? And I feel like I really love all these kind of different points. When I took refuge, my teacher, we're all kind of like bowing or like kneeling. And she was like, remember the moment of suffering that brought you here. And have that be this seed, right? This moment, like always remember your suffering and what it brought you to. And so from what I hear from your story and sharing as well, is that like suffering brought you to this path, and it was like this surrender, right? And then you just kept surrendering further and further. And you're like, okay, now it's completely out of my control and it's feeding me, right? It's like, it is nourishing me in all of these ways.
I wish I could just say that just how you did, because that's exactly perfectly right. That's just so well summed up in like 2 sentences.
I would love to hear how your yoga practice and mindfulness has informed your law practice and work.
Yeah, well, law practice, it's such heady. You're so in your head, and that's my default, virtue and vice, right? You just, you have these analytical tendencies, and you can think through problems. And, law is really amazing on a lot of fronts. One, on an advocacy front, because there's a certain bit of, positioning that you can speak up for people who maybe don't have a voice. So that's, there's kind of a fighter aspect of it, but it's a mental fight. It's not like a physical fight. And I hate to use the word fight, but it can feel like that, sometimes in the law. It can feel very confrontational. It can be very adversarial. And it's a mental kind of fight. And so I feel like with yoga, what I noticed when I was practicing, kind of in my heyday of my practice, it was the heyday of my like hot yoga also. And it was such a great balance, right? Like I needed to get like out of my head into my body and actually feel like what's going on and feel a sense of aliveness, because I would just start living in this space up here. And I still do that, obviously I still do that. But I think I think yoga has been such a great balance for really cerebral work. When you're really using your analytical skills, you're trying to find solutions, and you're, sort of navigating this world in a very practical, pragmatic way. It's important to, bring yourself back to your body. And I suffered physical ailments, I would say, because I was here and not in here, and I wasn't realizing what was happening. I had a huge bout with migraine headaches, because my nervous system was like on the fritz. I was like literally frying myself, I think, through this like cognitive work and worry and anxiety and, like motherhood and work. And, you have grief and just all the things we go through as human beings. And I am one that has taken my body for granted. I will just, and it stops me, my body is the one that always gets me. It's always like, Kristin, you got to slow down. You gotta, you are not paying attention. And for a long time, I didn't believe in the body brain connection. Like, I really thought my brain was just gonna take me, and like I thought like all that, the thinking that I could do was, because it really helped me. My brain has helped me get in good situations and problem solve and everything. But then I just kind of left my body behind, and it was like, nope, you're coming back and you're seated, and yoga was helped me stay healthy. It still does. I had an issue a few months ago where I had like serious digestive issues, and it was like my body just went like this. It was, and but I knew it this time. I was like, oh, my body is like this because I'm not relaxed. And so I was like, back to the practice, And so for me, I don't think it's ever going to end. I don't think there's ever an ending point. It's a process. It's continually ongoing. And I just hope I can remember before I get, stuck.
Yeah, we're constantly in a process of remembering and returning. And I think what I'm also working on with myself is the softness of not being judgmental of every time I forget. And so like approaching myself like honey. I'm just like, okay, like, can I receive myself gently? Can I, when I return back?
Right.
Yeah.
And noting the universality of it, like, it's just how we're human beings. This is just a hard thing we are doing, and just having sympathy, sympathy for our situation, and having humor about it. Like I am looking, I've been able to also develop that, and I can tell when I don't do it. I can be a very serious person, and now if you can just step outside yourself and just be like, oh, there she goes again, she's doing her thing, she's getting all serious, and she's reading 5 books again, like, just, wow, that's a lot, Kristin, yeah. So I do a lot of that too.
You, and from your own personal journey, and it sounds like also witnessing your mother's passing, was this inspiration for wanting to offer yoga and mindfulness to medical communities or people suffering from physical ailments. So what was the journey from that dream to finding Prison Yoga Project?
Okay, such a great question. Well, some other yogis and I, so there's like a part in between there of the story. And so when I was in yoga teacher training, I was so blessed to meet amazing people. And a few of these amazing people and I started kind of looking around at like the yoga scene and being very frustrated by like what was happening, basically, these like $20 yoga classes, these non-diverse, non-inclusive environments. And so we were like, well, maybe we could just do something where we could co-create a space and that would be more inviting to people, that would be more inclusive, where we it wasn't just like people of all different abilities, body sizes and backgrounds could enjoy yoga. And could we create a space like that? And we hadn't seen it be done in our neighborhood. And so we kind of got together, and so it was Crystal Coleman and Inga Bookbinder, Cherie Robinson, and my friend Andrea Brown and we just started offering community classes, and it felt great. And immediately we were, and at first it was like super small. It would be just like a few of us, but we were like so happy. We didn't really care because we were practicing, and the practice was that we were having such benefits from the practice that it didn't really matter if anyone was coming. But eventually it really grew. And when it grew, we were just noticing how much people appreciated this space, how much they appreciated yoga, and how yoga was just like working its magic. Just by being yoga itself, these people were moving, they're feeling into their bodies, they're feeling relaxed, and they're just feeling more alive. Like they're literally feeling a sense of aliveness that they hadn't felt before. And so we started doing community classes, and we've been doing that. This is like our 4th year of doing that now. And we're in our 4th year. And my friend Crystal Coleman said, hey, she's one of those people that like knows all the best trainings. Like I had people who know like all the best books, like my friend Kendall's like that. So Crystal knows like all the best trainings, and she researches it, and she goes to these amazing yoga trainings or in any kind of training. And then she tells you about it and who the people are. And so she was talking to me, we were talking one day, and she's like, hey, have you heard of the Prison Yoga Project? Do you know what they're doing? And I'm like, I really didn't know. Sorry to say, but I didn't. And she told me all about it. And she's like, we should look into this. I'm like, yeah, we should. But life and everything. But it was on my radar. And then let's see, what was the next segue? So I think I was reading something by Brian Stevenson, and Brian Stevenson had like a list of resources, like a list of organizations that he kind of like endorsed, and one of the things on the list was yoga in institutions, yoga in prisons. And I was like, okay. And so I kind of, registered again. And so then COVID hit, and we had a lot of time to think about what are the things we really wanted to do, and what could we do. And at the time I had talked to a couple of hospitals, like I said, about doing the meditation in the hospital setting, and COVID hit, and it was just like dead. It just became dead. Nothing was happening. Our community classes weren't happening. We were doing online, which was great, but we were just kind of in like a holding pattern. And so Crystal and I were like, well, I wonder if they're going to do like an online training for Prison Yoga Project, because this has been on our radar. This is what we wanted to do. And so I think at one point it was like 12 o'clock at night, and I'm online, and I'm like, okay, LA chapter, I got to get involved. I'm gonna let's see what this is about. And so that's how it started with Prison Yoga. And both Crystal and I took the first online training that the Prison Yoga Project offered, and it was fantastic. It was amazing. And I have to give a shout out to Bill, because I think I had bugged you a couple times, like via email or text message or something, and you were like ultra responsive. Like, I was like it was like a yes every time. It was like, can this be possible? Can this happen? Are you gonna do an online training? And Bill's like, yes, it's coming. Yes, and this is where you need to go and hook up with the LA chapter. So I really, your responsiveness, Bill, helped the whole thing happen. So it was really great.
I
Thank you.
And you
Similar.
were in that training too, Blair, and you were in the first training too, right? Sorry, I meant to mention.
No,
I don't
no.
know why
So,
I'm always.
and that's so funny too, because you're like, it's funny what happens when you have spaciousness. Things get clear,
Right.
right? You're like, okay, like what is it that I want to do? And also had been on my radar for like a decade. And I kind of was like, oh, I need to do my yoga teacher training first before I do a training with them. And I kind of just, I hadn't done one yet. And then I was like, okay, well, now I've done a yoga teacher training. Like I can do it.
Right.
And then I also love that I don't think we did one physical asana practice throughout the whole training. And I'm like, this is so much deeper than I had even imagined. And so I also got involved during the pandemic as well. So I love hearing other stories of that too. So why we also brought you here talking about the uncertainty of beginnings. Will you tell us the story of how you started teaching at Norco?
Yeah, this is such a, I hesitate to start with it. I kind of was like, I wanted to share like how amazing, because this is gonna, I don't want this to scare anyone, like this part of the story. But if we can promise to go back, like how the benefits also. The second
Absolutely.
question. Okay.
We'll keep
All
circling
right.
back. Yeah.
Okay, we'll circle back to that because because I really thought about, what's important about the message here. And I think the message is just how valuable the program is, and how valuable sharing yoga inside is and can be, and the benefits that the guys are getting from it. So we'll come back to that. So and I know there's students, there's people in your courses right now who might be thinking about, at some time, do I want to be a facilitator and what's that look like? So I just don't want to totally scare anyone away. So I want to make sure we circle back to the rewarding stuff, because how it started was a little crazy. So this is the crazy story. So in the beginning of the year, it was clear we were still in the pandemic. It was 2021. And behind the scenes, this is my version of the story, Bill. So you can you're probably like, this is so not what happened. But like, this is my, my lens of what was going on. But so my lens was that, like the people behind the scenes of Prison Yoga Project, including Bill, were like, developing this like amazing correspondence course, right? So James is this outstanding book, and then they built this workbook, and they're building worksheets, and they're getting grant funding. I mean, these people are charging behind the scenes trying to get this correspondence course unrolled as soon as possible, as soon as we could. So when they heard of that, then they needed a facilitator, so I interviewed for the position with Billy Bannon to be a yoga facilitator for this correspondence course. It was supposed to be a correspondence course. And so and so I was like, I could do this, I'm a lawyer and I write a lot and I can like grade things, I mean, like, it's not really, anyway. So I was like totally open to that. So I get hired on for that. But things are stalled, and things are stalled because of COVID and because of like sort of bureaucratic and administrative issues on the facilities part, not PYP. And but there's a break. And so we think this, again, this is my perspective. Those probably like, oh my God, there's like so many other layers. But we think we're going to go in the spring, and we're getting ready, and we're getting the correspondence stuff done. And I'm going through the materials, and Billy is kind of like my supervisor. I'm talking to him, we're getting a plan. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating because it's taking a lot of time, and we're kind of like hitting obstacle after obstacle in the COVID world of being able to get inside. But we're still planning to do a correspondence course. Then all of a sudden it's like, we're in person. They're like, oh, can you go in person next week? And I'm like, whoa, okay, so this is like, okay, cool. Like, I mean, I'm kind of like, better than a correspondence course, because so much more interaction and relationship and communication can happen in person. So I was actually really excited to go in person. So I'm like, oh, this is so great, so it's like kind of moving into summertime, and we're like, okay, we're going to go in person. And so I'm talking to Billy, and he's like, yeah, so I don't know if he actually said this or I imagined it, but what I imagined was like him and I going into the facility and teaching the class together. And I was like Robin, and he was like Batman. And like, I was cool with that. I was like, good, I can do no problem, and there's no fault to any. I mean, it was like a shape shifting dynamic. I think that actually was the plan at one point, so so yeah, Bill's like, yes, that was a plan. And so then the plan was like, oh no, we got two classes. We got two classes, which is awesome. We're like, it was like a gift from the universe to have two classes. So we're like, cool. So Billy's like, you're going to have one. I'm going to have one. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And I'm like, trying to be cool, but in my head, I'm like, okay, this is okay. I can do this. And then Billy, and so I'm thinking, like, I've seen pictures, in the books, like of what it's like what you go through training for, you look at the pictures of the book. So the pictures in the books, there's like 12 people in the class or whatever. And so Billy's like, oh, it's going to be 25. I'm like, okay, all right, 25. And so I'm thinking like, how's the room set up with 25? And like, how do I do it trauma informed? But I'm like, okay, I can fine, 25. And then the idea, and again, this is just all the idea. And this is like morphine over like 4 weeks. It's just morphine. Every 2 days, there's like a new version of what's happening. And then it's like, it's not going to happen because it's like COVID. So we're going through all that. But to make a long story short, so then at one point, Billy's like, well, you know what? They want to start right away, but I'm not going to be able to start right away because I have commitments. So can you take both classes? You're going to have like 50 guys. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And so I'm like, so this whole thing of like, it just kind of more, but in my head, I was like, the PYP training was outstanding. I mean, the breadth and depth of like what we received, on a trauma informed, how to facilitate in a trauma informed way, the most sensitive methods to use. I had that, in my toolbox, right? I was like, I got that, and then I've had experience facilitating. I've been lucky that I've been in community. And so I'm used to facilitating where someone has no experience with yoga and someone might be a total adept at yoga, so I was like, I get that going. And then I'm used to actually facilitating for men, which is unusual, because usually a lot of yoga teachers, in a studio setting, you're facilitating for a predominantly female audience, or not female participants. And, I've worked with sports teams that were, all men and giant people, like they're giant. I'm not a very big person. So I was like, okay, giant guy is like, I can do that, I was like, so I'm like, I've encountered a lot. So I feel like, I could do 50. And then I'm looking at Billy and he's like, yeah, you can do this. So I'm like, well, he says I can do this, And so here I am with this idea, I'm gonna have 50 guys in this, pretty high security facility. And, inside forces started hitting me. I started questioning. I was like, dude, what's the setup for 50 people? Like how are people going to be comfortable? How do people feel safe in that environment? What's the process? And then I'm like, do they come here because they want to, or are they like being made to come here? I just like started having all these questions that I didn't have, during training because I didn't know to have them. And I thought, what if like the participants don't want to be there? And for some reason, like, I'm like, are they going to heckle me? Like I'm some comedian or something getting heckled. I was concerned about that. Like somehow that became like an issue for me. And then I was like, where do I go to the bathroom? Like, where's the bathroom? Can they go to the bathroom? And do two of them have to go? Or like, so I started so these inside forces started like totally working on me. And I started kind of freaking out, but mildly, like I was mildly freaking out until I really started freaking out because the outside forces came in. And so the outside forces, I have a friend who is a social worker and therapist at the women's facility in Chino. And we do yoga together. We were practicing Ashtanga one morning and she came in just wrecked, and I was like, Inga, what is going on? What's going on? And she's like, oh, Kristin, we've been on lockdown and we just came off and we came off and it was really great because everyone was back in community. We were having sessions. And she's like, a fight broke out between two of my patients. And I was like, what? She's like, a fight broke out and one of her older, she's a therapist and one of her patients was like like in her 60s and she got like brutally hurt during the fight. And I was just like, oh, like a fight could break out. Like, I just, it's just something I hadn't really thought through. We talked about earlier coming to this totally green, really naive about what's happening. So, but she's like, oh, it was no big deal. She's been a therapist in this kind of situation. I mean, it was a big deal. I mean, But she's like, as far as security goes, I had a button, we broke up the fight. But I'm like, did you feel like you wanted to help break up the fight? Like, how was that for you? Did you just watch? I mean, how do you handle something like that? You don't know until you're there. So I started thinking about that. And then there's an amazing amount of training that's offered. PYP does an outstanding job, prepping you for like all different kinds of things that would happen, and sharing experience. And but I had to do a further training with the facility itself. And so the facility, and that was extensive. And so there was a training for that, which I was really grateful for. But then I had to do like a third training with the facility. So I'm on this call, and I've got two like young adults in the car on this call, and I'm going through like these kind of guidelines, and like one of the guideline, and in this, one of the people at the facility, the program coordinator at the facility, is telling me, okay, listen, like things happen. And so like one thing that could happen is like the guards might yell, the officers might yell, get down. But you are not to get down. Like the guys are to get down, but you do not get down. So make sure you don't get down, Kristin. If people are yelling, get down, don't get down. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then it moved into like, and if there's a hostage situation, and I was like, wow, like there's a hostage situation. I was just, I just didn't, it just was literally. And so like these outside, and then, okay, so this is the last thing, like, I know this is kind of going long, but I went to deliver the mats. We had like 50 yoga mats and all these amazing materials, like the books and the worksheets and everything. And so we went to get those inside. And that itself was like a whole process of even getting these materials inside. It's just a huge process to get anything happening in these facilities. It was a big endeavor, but we got it done. But the facility itself, the space is like really intimidating. Like it's, a lot of guard towers, a lot of barbed wire, a lot of shut doors, a lot of dilapidated kind of structures. And it just, the space threw me off. Like it just even being in the outside space, I was like, wow, this space is really, is like an intimidating space. This is something I had been to the women's facility. I'd been to Twin Towers downtown LA, and I have been to the county jail, but this space was like next level kind of like feel. And so, but I'm just like, okay. And I could tell that, these inside doubts that I was having, along with these external, like additional information, it was creating more doubts. And I did have like kind of a minor freak out. I was just kind of like, what am I doing? And I think the practice really helped with that. And I'll say one other thing happened, and I'll tell the benefits of the practice. But I had kind of calmed down, and it was a few hours before I'm going to go facilitate, literally like a few hours before I go. And I had kind of gone through like a freak out, and then like I kind of got myself calm, and I was just kind of resigned. I was kind of resigned to like whatever happens is going to happen, is meant to happen. And as I'm resigned to that, and I'm actually feeling super mellow and super calm, like I'm just going to do it, like I just hands raised, I'm just surrendered to this experience. I get a call from the program coordinator, and she's like, the COs, the correctional officers, are very concerned that you're female and you're teaching yoga and what you're going to wear. And I'm like, and how you're going to do it. And I'm like, what? And they're like, the COs didn't know you were female. They're concerned that you're female, and they're concerned about what you're going to wear and what positions you're going to be, if you're going to be touching. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I had to like assure her, that like we've been trained in prison yoga in this trauma informed environment of how to facilitate in ways that would be most helpful and not harmful in this kind of situation. But I guess, I don't know if they didn't know I was gonna, anyway, it just was like an issue. And so I was like, in my mind, at this point, I was laughing, because I'm like, okay, the world is like playing a joke on me. Like the universe is just like, take this one. Now, can you handle this one? And I'm just like, okay, yeah. Just like, so at that point, I just like gave up, and I was laughing, and we kind of talked about, it, but I think what was really helpful was the practice. And I came, I realized, my cycle, I really noticed when my head starts spinning and I start thinking about one situation, situation. And the one situation that I started getting concerned about that I had no idea was this fight. Like I was like what we were talking about before, I'm good in a mental fight, but like a physical fight, I'm like the little dog who like is tiny and is like barking at like, you know, the big dogs, like I rah, 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 but really I'm gonna go like run, and so like could I defend myself, you know, I'm just gonna like pee on myself, you know, I mean that's how I would feel, like I was just like the little dog. And so in a mental advocacy, a mental kind of fight, I felt confident. What I was realizing in like a physical situation, if I was going to watch a fight or be part of a fight or be part of an incident, like I felt really worried about that. I had a lot of fear around that I have even no idea where that comes from, except for maybe I just didn't know what it was, you know, or it's just fear of the unknown. So anyway, but I think what helped was knowing that, you know, that was my mind spinning, you know, that was like the fight didn't happen, like there was no fight, it wasn't happening in the present, it was never really going to happen maybe in the future, it's just something that I completely started obsessing about. And so so I think the embodied awareness was really huge, you know, and sensing where I was feeling this tension, recognizing that my mind was spinning off, and then I just kind of got, and the other thing that was huge was the Sangha. Billy was invaluable. Billy Bannon is the chapter leader in LA. And he really helped me like walk through like a lot of different scenarios. He has a breadth of experience that people don't have. This guy has been teaching yoga he was a former basketball coach at, you know, Cal Poly Pomona. So he has this kind of like coachy, amazing teacher vibe, very different from me. But he just went in, you know, after his teaching career or his basketball, you know, coaching career, and started teaching all over California, just like on his own, because he loves yoga so much and he loves sharing it so much. So he like was able to, you know, help me, like, where do I park and what is going to happen with security and what do I bring in? And he like walked me through it almost as if he was taking me through like a visual tour of like what the facility would be and what to expect. And I can't tell you enough how much that like soothed my nerves from his experience, and also his confidence that, you know, he was just like, you can do this, you know, you'll be fine, we've done this, you will do this. And so that was huge. And I had a lot of support from my friends and family. You know, my friends and family were just like, it's just like unbelievable. I felt like when I first went in, like the hours, I'm getting a little emotional. The hours before I went in, I felt like all of them were coming with me. It just felt like that. I felt, in a way, I felt like you guys were coming with me. You know, I felt like you were there. I felt like Billy was there. I felt like my family was there. And I felt like I just felt like I had this immense support underneath me. And it actually made it easy. So with all that craziness, like with all that nutsness about self-doubt and like all these external forces, the community support and being able to recognize how your mind, you know, can take you to places that don't even exist was very, very, very helpful.
Yeah. You can hear my audio, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
What you've just described is like absolutely the least ideal start perspective.
I feel like it's probably my karma bill. So I just, you know, like,
you know, and at the same time, yeah, here we are today, you know, and obviously I can't wait to hear the next step. I can't wait to hear, okay. And then I went through the Sally port at the front gate, and we're going to get to that.
Right.
I really just wanted to say that everything that you're saying, everything that you're speaking to, is the reason why Prison Yoga Project exists. You know, the training, you know, you've seen the pictures. It's like you're starting to really get familiar. And then what you're describing with Billy, you know, and actually we used to do this a little bit, and maybe we'll do this again, but we would do a visualization as part of our in-person trainings where, well, it's not so much a visualization, but I would describe, like I go down to Central Jail and I park about 3 blocks away and I pay the meter. And then the only thing that I've got with me is my driver's license and my keys. And I walk down the 3 blocks to Central Jail and I go, and I mean, and literally I press the button for the 9th floor, in the elevator, so that we can really give people an experience of what this is going to be like, to like take away as many of those unknowns, because then the reality of it is, and then I walked in and then I got off the elevator at the 9th floor and they're wheeling somebody out on a stretcher, and I find out that the facility is on lockdown because there's been a fight. Things like this do happen in these situations. Ideally for us, a class is 15 people. A class has 2 facilitators. The first time you go in, if there is a program in your community, you go in with somebody who's in there already facilitating, or preferably, if that's not available, then maybe there's a religious group. And we say, can we go in as a guest and just be there, so that I can get an experience and start to feel comfortable in the environment. And so literally, like, everything went wrong in getting this. I mean, and besides the fact of, like, I can't even begin to tell you the nightmare that these CARES grant based programs have been in California, because we wrote the grants in April of 2020, like at a point when none of us know what the future is going to be.
Right.
Little did we know that here we are in September of 2021 and we're really still dealing with this. So many such facilities shut down. And so, yeah, all of that is happening CDCR is doing the best that they can. Anyway, what happened next?
Yeah.
And then I drove to
and then and then I go in and so I forgot my ID. It was like a big thing. And what you said, well, I mean, I didn't totally forget it, thank God. But what you said is so helpful. And Billy did exactly that. Like he took me through like a whole visual of what, and Billy wasn't even, he wasn't there. He couldn't, so I started on my own.
Like out of town.
Yeah, he was out of town. He had other commitments for the first 3 sessions. So I went in for 3 weeks on my own. And so the first time I go, and he had walked me through, I leave my ID in the car because I am nervous. I'm calm, but I'm nervous, And so I'm like, oh geez, so I go and get my ID, and I had been concerned about the space. The space was really like a daunting kind of space. And my goddaughter, Mackenzie, and I were talking about it. And I was just like, yeah, the space is kind of bugging me. And she's like, well, Kristin, you would be co-creating the space. She's like, it's going to be a co-created space inside. So you can think about that, like there's the outside space and the inside space. And I really took that with me, And then the other thing that happened that was really cool is you have a sponsor. Well, in this facility, I have a sponsor. Yeah. So what that means is I have someone, she's like similar to my demographic. She's my age, size, or whatever, and she works at the facility. And then we start at 6:30 in the evening, and she meets me there and walks me to where we need to go, which is in the gym. And then she stays there the whole time and like monitors class, and she knows all the rules of the facility and can kind of help when I have questions, which was fantastic. So I had a wonderful facilitator. I've had wonderful facilitators the whole time that I've been there. There's been 3 different ones, but we have one now that's consistent. But she was fantastic. So she really also soothed, and provided, some comfort to me of just the unknowns and getting me through the unknowns, like where to use bathrooms and how that works. And so then we go inside, and it was, I don't know really how to go from here, because it was a total 180 shift is what it felt like. It just felt like, yeah, so I'm facilitating the class, the guys are coming in, And there, I was where I had the concern that like they were going to be resistant, like maybe there's resistance to the class. What is yoga? Why am I here? I don't want to be here. It was the 180 degrees opposite. They were like, we are so happy to be here. They have been on lockdown. So we've all been on lockdown.
Yeah.
They've been on lockdown in a whole different way in their facility. The movement is really restricted. I was told there were no other classes besides Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous going on. And those are all peer led. So we, Prison Yoga Project, were the only outside, we were the first, and we still may be the first in that facility right now, I'm not sure. So they've had no offerings like this at all. So they're like coming from this place of complete gratitude for just being able to be there. They're just grateful to be there. And a few of them don't even know why they're there. They're just like, I got on some list and I'm here and I'm just happy to be. And I'm like, cool, you know, and that's kind of what I expected. And then some of them, like 3 of them are like total yogis. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
what? Like, I just was blown away. They're practicing, they're like practicing at like 5 a.m., you know, like 2 of them practicing at 5 a.m. And before they come to the class, they're doing yoga. Why we just graded a homework, not graded, and it's not homework. I'm trying to like, I'm new to the teaching. You know, I'm trying to, anyway, we're getting feedback. And so in the feedback, and then I'm giving feedback to the feedback. One of the guys just shared that he's read the Ayurvedic encyclopedia. You know, I'm like, what's the Ayurvedic encyclopedia? And he, and so there were a number of guys that were into yoga, and they didn't, and then there was, it was like a third, and a third. Like a third had no idea like what was going, why they're even there. Oh, and there was only, so I'm prepping for 19 people. So because the roster is 25, and then some people we knew weren't going to make it, so it looked like it was going to be 19 or 20, and then I had like 11, I think. And so easy, you know, I was like, oh, easy. You know, 11 people, we're a circle, we're 6 feet apart. Oh, and then we have COVID though, you know, so then it's like, there's a mask, it's like 110 degrees in Norco, it's super hot, there's no air conditioning, there's a huge fan that like, you can't hear anything. And we got the mask and the fan and the heat. And so really what I was dealing with was what we all deal with when we're facilitating yoga in new positions, is all these environmental stuff. That was actually one of the most challenging things at first going in there, is just getting to figure out the environmental stuff to make it a situation. You know, it's like, okay, we're going to do meditation. Do I turn the fan off? Are they going to get too hot? And the other thing was the rules, like what kind of clothes can they wear? That became an issue. I didn't really know exactly what the rule was. My sponsor helped me. We did have a correctional officer there present that first time. And then there's like this thing about the whistle. I'll just one, this is another last negative thing. That kind of freaked me out. And so Inga was like, well, if you don't have a button, you'll have a whistle. You just bring a whistle. And I was like, okay. And so when I got that call, and so I got a whistle, you know, I went online and got a whistle, and because I don't even have a whistle, like now I have a bunch of whistles. But anyway, so when I got that program, when I got a call from the program director, she's like, well, you have your whistle, right? And I'm like, you know, because COs are worried, you know, COs are worried about you being there and being female and what you're gonna do. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I got my whistle. And then we're gonna do is string that around my neck. Like, I'm like, this is crazy. You know, I'm not gonna wear this whistle around my neck when we're trying to facilitate, you know, but you don't think of those things. Like, what do you do with your whistle? So I was like, okay, I will put it in my pocket. And if I need my whistle, I can grab it in my pocket or whatever. And so so I carry my whistle in my pocket, and I feel more comfortable about that. But anyway, so there's like the whole whistle thing. And then, so that was kind of the first experience. And so I was surprised by how many guys were into the yoga. I was super surprised. I was surprised at how receptive everyone was. I was surprised at what of a lack of programming, and what a lack of interaction, and what a lack of social connectedness these guys are exposed to. That was hard. I mean, you can imagine it, but it's different when you go in and you feel it.
Yeah.
So that was what was hard. It had nothing to do with the facility. It had nothing to do with these guys being resistant to what was going on. There was no fight. It was the intensity of their isolation, and their sincere appreciation for being there. So that was just blew me away. That was day one. I think on day one also, I got questions about energy. I mean, I was not expecting it. Like I got questions about, energetic experiencing. One guy actually asked me, what is Kundalini? And I was like, okay, I'm going to get back to you on that. Like, I wasn't really prepared for that question. And I wanted to make sure I was like really mindful of how I read. But we did talk about that on the next class, in class 2, and we talked about energy a lot. And it was very clear to me that many of these guys are very adept at experiencing their own energy, which is also something you don't always. It was different. It was different from what I've seen in community classes, and I think because they have the time and the space, they're in tune. A lot of the layer of bullshit is gone. Like they don't have that. They come from they're coming from a place of authenticity. A lot of this ego stuff is just not existent for them. Many of them over the course of the last, so it's been 10 weeks now. So I'm in 10 weeks. Their questions are about consciousness a lot. Like I've said, like a third, and then a third of them just all of them, I would say 100, almost, I would say I definitely 90%, and possibly 100% of them are find the breath and the breathing game changers. Just immediately. And so on the third day, I brought this from some of the feedback. I just wanted to share this one sentence from one of the participants, and this is after 2 sessions. So I got this on the 3rd session. And what's really cool about the course program, I'll just get, the homework's divided, or not the homework, the lessons. The study guide. The study guide is divided into like 3 parts. So one is like specific to that lesson. So we go over certain things. We might be focusing on like the inner self. What's that compared to the outer self? Or we might focus on asana, or we might focus on breathing. And so and then another part of the study materials is a practice log. Mm-hmm. So they log like when they practice. And this is, I know you guys know this, but just for other people who don't know. Okay, so the other part is a practice log, and they log like, what they did, what time they did it, and then how they felt before they started and how they felt after they started, whether they felt, from on an overwhelmed scale, like on an at ease to kind of overwhelmed scale. It's really beautifully laid out. And then the other piece of the study guide is to talk about their feelings and identify like where their feelings are in their body, and it's just a really powerful set of questions. And so it allows them to explore like what happened that brought up feelings. What can you name those feelings? Where is it in the body? And how did you react to it? What were you proud of? Like, what did you handle well when those came up? And then what could you have done better? And so anyway, as part of one of those responses, which has been, the responses have just blown me away. But this one came after 2 weeks. So I get this on the 3rd week. I mean, okay, so it says, I had feelings which I call ineffable because they were. It's like I was full of an unknown something that allowed me to feel good for reasons that evade me. I mean, here's this guy, he's like a poet, he's like I had, he felt good for the first time for reasons he has no idea why. Yeah. Because it feels like that. He got like unstuck in different ways. 2 sessions. That's the 3rd session. So now we're in 8 live sessions, 10 weeks into the program, and it's just built from there.
Yeah. Wow. We made that one. We made the, I think I called it the experience log.
Yes.
Which is, I will come up with a better name at some point, but
that's perfect. I think it's great.
You think it's okay?
Yeah, I like it.
Tried to really take like a nonviolent communication approach to, it's like, in as practical a term as possible, objectively, what happened? something something that something this week that caused a significant reaction for me was this. And then it's like, this, yeah, all of that. And then we give them a vocabulary of feelings and a vocabulary of sensations. And I really think that this, to me, is the point of the correspondence program really is the practice logging, because we want to encourage people to be doing, at least 60 minutes of yoga, not 60 minutes, 60 minutes a week, split over 3 to 4 sessions. And this was if we weren't going to be going inside, which is fantastic that we've got this and that, right? Because the sense of community and the being together, to encourage, that practice that's regular and consistent and for a long duration. But then really to apply what we're, okay, the muscle that we're strengthening is that awareness of what's happening in our bodies. When we get into these situations where our body is having a strong reaction, and then to be able to step into the gap with awareness and notice, and then recognize that, maybe you got into a shouting match, but then you recognized yourself shouting and you took yourself out onto the yard because you didn't want things to escalate. And so it's like, well, something I could have done better and something I'd like to congratulate, right? Because there's always that in every situation, right? And we made that optional though, because we were afraid that people weren't going to want to talk about, like, well, I almost got in a fight, because they might have it. And so, but it's fascinating to hear that people are using that. I can't wait to see more of that. But I want to go back to what you were describing with you get in there, they've been isolated, they've been cut off, and this is the thing that is like all the things that you had imagined would be challenging were manageable. And especially because you've got self-help sponsors who their experienced with the space, and so you can co-regulate with them.
Totally.
Them be the calm energy that you can draw on. And then but then the thing that felt most significant was like recognizing like the space that they're in like cut off. And Josephine describes she says extra receivers. And you mentioning that the ego is stripped away, and there's a genuineness and an authenticity to way people are showing up, especially when they're meeting somebody who is coming there for a caring reason. Because like you're saying, you may be the only caring person in their life that they're meeting, in this space. And that, I think, when we think we're going into, and we are practicing yoga, but if we think in terms of this narrow Western definition of what yoga is, right, of asana and breath practices and this, that's not really where the greatest benefit comes from. The greatest benefit comes from the compassion that we're able to bring into the space, and how that opens up an opportunity for them to reciprocate that compassion. And what I see with these groups, as they do build into a community, and then that compassion, which they're, may come easy for this outside facilitator, but then like these people that they're having to live with that are not necessarily the folks that they would choose to be living with, they used to like all that compassion for the other people who are practicing together with them sort of like takes root. And it can really, I've had guys tell me, it's like, not everybody has to practice in yoga on the yard, but just having a yoga class on the yard completely changes the energy of the yard. And this thank you so much. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it is amazing. I will just echo what you're saying about what yoga does. And to me, I mean, if I had to use one word, I would just say connectedness and interconnectedness. And so, all these things we do in yoga, whether it be asana or the pranayama or whatever, it's just like a vehicle in my mind for this a connectedness to ourselves, to each other, and to everything. And these guys feel it. It's just palpable. And that's connectedness is what's building. And it's because of the intense setting, it feels like it's building like faster and stronger than I've seen something done in a community. I mean, I've seen it in yoga teacher training because people are really wanting to be there, but there's just less there. Like you said, there's a base level of authenticity and sincerity, and it's just like what matters. There's this underlying thing of like what matters, and so it just makes it really easy to make connection in that way.
Yeah.
So
yeah. It's almost like there's this pressure and this necessity of that community, but it just can't get itself together in that environment. And then you bring yoga into it, and it's like the genuineness and the power of community and connection and compassion and love. When we are doing the physical practices that are helping us manage what's happening in our amygdala,
right.
And when fear diminishes, what is the part of our humanity that takes over is kindness and connection and compassion and all of that. And it's like a dam bursting, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's life-changing to experience.
But it's brought up another problem.
Oh,
do you know what that is? Okay, so this is the chapter 3. Okay, and I know we probably have questions or something, but so the chapter 3 is, so now we're all this great, we're this tight, everyone's sharing, and feelings are being expressed, people are gratitude for the space. I'm learning a ton. Like every time I go, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm just learning. It's really fantastic. We go into COVID, so we get locked down. So we're there for 5 weeks, and then we're shut down for 2 weeks, and we don't know how long it's going to be shut down. We think because it's COVID. So maybe it's like 2022. I have no idea when we get to go in next. It was tough. Because I thought, here we go, we're on a roll. These guys are getting programming, they're not programming, but they're having connection, they're building community, we're all learning together, we're creating, there's this great program that we're a part of. And then it's just like done, right? And like we're like can't see each other anymore. Thankfully, the facility, was really on top of it, and we were able to. And because you guys had, did such a great job with the correspondence aspect, we started getting the assignments and the study guides through scanning, so we could get that. But still, the human connection was not. So it was sort of a problem, but then it wasn't, because we were still continuing. And then we got to go back inside after 2 weeks. But what happened, which I wasn't expecting as a teacher or as a facilitator, and I think this is important for people to know, it was something that really caught me by surprise, is, even in that 5 weeks, because it was so fast and so intense, it was such a fast and intense build of community. When I came back after 2 weeks of being gone, 2 guys were released, which is a celebration for them, right? It's a celebration for them. They got to go home. And 3 guys were still in a unit that was in lockdown. Mm-hmm. So half of the group of this little community that, was feeling really good in a way, feeling connected, and loving and caring. It was really feeling that way, and growing and learning, and just a seed for everything. It was like amputated, It was like the head wasn't cut off, but a few arms and maybe a couple other, and it was weird. And, I was sharing with Blair, it's a growth, and we know the Dharma is to let go and to not be attached, right? Like we know this, we know it in our head, but to have the capacity in your heart to build connection and feel connection, and then kind of feel it dissipate and go away, it's not easy. It's not easy, and I can tell it might be the thing that I'm going to struggle with most. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And I would like to know, I mean, not really maybe at this moment, I don't know if it's the right form or whatever, but these are things that this community is very helpful for me to talk about, because I think that is going to be a big issue, this letting go. You create, there's someone in it. Kate, my friend Kate is here. She made a comment. She said impermanence. And right. And we get it. We get impermanence, but it doesn't mean it's easy.
There's also, I mean, as much as we want to, be Buddha and without completely free of attachments, or whoever Buddha, whoever you want to, we're human, we experience grief. And this is, and we also experience, I mean, like, this is another reason for PYP's existence. And as programs are getting restarted around the world, we're going to have a consultation group that it'll be drop-in. So just like if you're a therapist and you're doing work, you meet together with a group of other therapists to discuss, like, if there's a particularly difficult case. We want to have a consultation group for people who are doing this, because there are things that happen. Generally, they are not things that I've only heard one instance where a program provider, and it wasn't a PYP program provider, but another one, witnessed, she didn't witness a fight, but somebody came into the room where they were doing their program and slumped into a chair, and she went over to say, hey, this is a closed program, you can't be here. And his hand fell away from his abdomen and he was bleeding. He'd been stabbed. And when the rest of the guys that were in her program saw what was going on, like, they rushed over, they brought her over to the opposite side of the room, and two of them went out to get a CO. And it's like, so, but she didn't have anyone to talk about this with, and she had held it in for months, and then finally brought it out with a group of other program providers. And so, it was, she needed community that understands vicarious trauma and all of that. But I've had experiences, and I'm gonna have an experience, because a core anchor of my program on Echo at Donovan, several of them, many of them, are either released or transferred to another prison. And so it is going to feel a lot like rebuilding from scratch, to create that sense of community. We also have a wait list of like 75 people for a 25 spot class. And we're going to need to institute, like, once you've been in for a year, we're going to take you off the roster and you're going to go back to the bottom of the wait. Just because I want to cycle more people, I want to get more people exposed. Walk on to Delta Yard one morning, and Danny's wheeling one of the big orange things, and he's like, I got transferred to Valley State. And it's like 6 years I've known this guy. And I walk in, and if it hadn't been that he happened to be moving his stuff out, Danny would have just been gone out of my life. And this is something that they're experiencing. And I remember talking to one guy one night. I was leaning up against the wall waiting for something to start, and he's in pill line, comes over and starts chatting with me. And he was saying, I really just kind of keep to myself. I really don't have any friends here. I had a friend once. I had a cellmate that I was with for 3 years, and we were pretty close, and he got moved, and it just broke my heart. And I don't want to feel that pain again. And it's such a real thing that is happening in these spaces. There's so many forces that work against developing loving, kind relationships. And this is this is counterproductive to the whole enterprise of like rehabilitation, which is a word I dislike. But this is,
I'm gonna hop in with
please, Blair.
We've got some really nice comments even in the Q&A as well. So I want to start with Judith. They say, thank you so much for your openness and humanity. Truly inspiring to be able to listen to you. This offering has been so valuable, as I myself am on the threshold of facilitating yoga in prisons and possibly also with refugees here, which she said is in France. So fingers crossed for that. I especially appreciated when you spoke to the feeling of not going in alone, but with the entire PYP community and your own loved ones. That was very moving for me, especially since we're building a Sangha here, and I very much look forward to carrying on the work together. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, so now the question is, how do you zone in and out before and after the time spent inside? Do you craft out special time for yourself? Do you exchange with your community? Do you make sure that you take time around your practices inside that are especially calm and quiet? I'm sure that we all craft our own rituals and routines, and she's just curious whether you could speak on to how this works for you and what you do for you. Awesome question. Thank you, Judith.
Yeah.
Such a great question. Such a great question. I will say that I'm consistently inconsistent with everything right now. So but one thing that's really helped me, which was actually Billy's suggestion, was to keep a journal of what's going on. And I thought it was an awesome suggestion. It's completely helped me. So what I do is, and I use it, I take it inside with me, and I take attendance in the journal. You know, I like get all the names of everyone who's there, and it's different, you know, sometimes. And then I usually have some sort of ideas about what I want to cover, make sure I don't forget anything. Because, you know, you get in the zone of teaching and you forget like some, you know, kind of housekeeping things. And then afterwards, it'll be maybe the next day, usually like on a Friday. We go in Thursday night. So like on a Friday, I will reflect on thoughts and feelings that I had. And that's been really helpful. And then I think, you know, I really do believe it's important to have as facilitators to practice. I think it's important to practice. And I think, you know, everyone practices differently. And I don't think there's like a certain hours or number or anything like that I would ever put on it. But I think when you know that you're feeling like you want movement, or, you know, you feel like you need stillness, to do that. But I think regularly meditating has been huge, and regularly moving has been huge. But journaling is something I wouldn't have probably thought to do, and Billy recommended it, and I think it was really great suggestion.
Thank you. Do you have 5 more minutes for us to take maybe one more question and wrap? I just want to honor your time as well, because I know we're at time.
Yeah, I do. And I just want to also say, like, friends, I just left out like a huge thing. Like, my friends and people in the PYP community and my family and my friends have listened so much to me, just kind of, you know, just listened, you know, just been a container for me. So I really have to give a shout out to my friends like Kate and all these, you know, all my friends and the PYP community, Billy too. Billy's always asking me, you know, how's it going? How are you feeling? What's come up? And he gives really helpful, he's given me some really helpful suggestions. He's a great teacher, and he really he has, you know, I really feel like great teachers simplify. They have a way of making complex things very simple, and he's got great stories. And sometimes I get like kind of convoluted and, you know, like, I don't know, in my brain, I guess. And he's been really helpful like that. So I got to give a shout out to the community and to my friends for helping with the practice. So I do think, I love, Bill, that you have this community of people, and you're building that for these, you know, new facilitators to come out and have these, what you said, like a therapist would, you know, commune with have coffee, you know, or whatever, and just kind of at least, you know, unlock it and let it go a little bit, you know, by talking about it.
We're having experiences that are unique.
Yeah.
You know, it goes beyond even folks that work together in a prison. Like, we're coming into the prison space in a very, very unique way. And we need to have people who have that shared experience that we can connect with, so that we know that, you know, like, I mean, it's interesting to me to hear you today. And I hear resonance with so many folks that I've talked to about, like, you know, this, the whistle. I remember the very first time driving down to the prison. I was going to go in with a Buddhist group, and I was with another guy, John, and we're driving down there, and we realized we don't have whistles. And we're like, oh my God, they're going to turn us away at the gate, and they're going to laugh at us. And, you know, and of course, then nobody even bothered. And I've never carried a whistle inside, you know. whenever they give me an alarm, it's like, oh man, I put it in my pocket because I don't want it like, visible. And I'm always worried that I'm going to accidentally bump the alarm button, and just all these little practical things like this. Yeah, but and then the bigger things too, about like, just the feeling this, like feeling, you're worried about the reception, and then it turns out to be 180 degrees the other way.
Right.
And this is the thing. It's like we've been encultured, and I'm sure that to a certain extent it is true that this is a volatile and potentially violent environment. That is true. But I think that what I feel when I'm inside is actually, I mean, and I've had other facilitators, women, say this to me, that I feel safer walking through the yard than I do like walking through Ocean Beach, which is the little community that I live in.
But maybe sadder.
Maybe a little sadder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In some ways, I mean, it's just, the situation can be sad.
Yeah. It's heavy. Blair, I think I saw, do you want to say more about that before?
Well, we have one more question too that I think is really great, from anonymous attendee. You sound very knowledgeable in trauma-informed yoga. I was wondering if you gained this knowledge only through the 32-hour PYP training, or did you do your 200-hour yoga training through PYP also? So I feel like I want two things. I would love for you to answer this question, and then just tie us up of just any advice that you would give to our community of starting, and what's inspiring to you, but yeah, just any advice that you want to wrap up with too.
Cool. No, I did not. I did my 200 and 500 hour yoga teacher training at Western Yoga College in Riverside, California. And I can't say that was specifically, there was an emphasis there on trauma informed, but it was a very profound training on all different levels, and I think when you encounter a very profound yoga training on all different levels, it's going to automatically, not automatically, but it's going to have a tendency to create, favorable conditions for you to be able to handle or be able to be sensitive to a lot of different situations. So I do think that my yoga teacher training, though it wasn't labeled trauma informed, was hugely beneficial, just coming from a place of sensitivity and coming from a place of yoga. I believe it was a real deal, and when you're coming from that place, it's easier to address any kind of situation. And that's kind of how I felt like with the fight kind of situation. It was like the Bhagavad Gita, where you're just like, you don't know what's going to happen. You're worried about it. Arjuna's like, hey, I got to kill somebody here. Who's it going to be? I don't know what I'm going to do. And there's no way. You just don't know until you're in the situation of how, to deal with something. And so that's what I think yoga teacher training did for me. But I think the added layer of doing the trauma informed yoga with the Prison Yoga Project was essential. Like, I mean, it just, and then the practical experience of doing it. And I'll just give a shout out. I thought for all you students who are in the course right now, I feel like you're so lucky. The depth and breadth of what goes on I've learned so much about the brain, so much about the body. Like, I still need more. I want more training actually in that regard. And I think Bill's a great person, a great resource to start with. So anyway, I just applaud the trauma informed training that's going on at the Prison Yoga Project, and also the social justice piece. I was blown away. Blair and I have talked about what advocates, there's some trepidation sometimes, like, what are you, helping a broken system? Are you being part of the evil that goes on in systemic oppression? And it was very clear to me when we were doing training. I think about Nicole and Josephine and is it Chanda Williams? And even you had on last week, Rebecca, who's the, the director in Ohio, to James Fox, to both of you. I've never seen more social advocacy in this arena than with the Prison Yoga Project. I mean, it's outstanding, and the training's outstanding. I highly recommend it. So I think being prepped in that way was huge, but I just think it wasn't just prep for being inside. It was like a preparation for how to deal with humanity, how to deal with these oppressive situations that we live in as a society, and what we do, and what we're failing at, and what we're doing well at, and how we can do better. So that was a huge inspiration. I forgot the other question. Bill, see that you see the similarity? Like you just keep going, like.
Any last piece of advice, anything that we didn't touch on, anything from your heart that you feel like you want our audience to know or share in?
A couple things come to mind. One thing is just connectedness, and that I think I'm so excited that so many people are interested in sharing yoga this way, because to me, yoga is about connectedness. And the fact, it feels to me like yoga is maybe evolving. It's not just about yoga, it's just about humanity. And maybe yoga is having like an involution right now. It's like, it's involving into something different. And I personally would love to see people be involved in this involution of yoga, where we're not focused on, body image and like this sort of elitist attitude of what yoga is, and really get to the core of it, which is connectedness. So I just am and I feel like if that's what you're into, and that's why you're doing the program, you're going to be blown away by giving it a shot to facilitate. And I offer my time to anyone who would want to talk more or have coffee with a mask or whatever, however we can do that, whenever we can do that, or over Zoom, and work through it together. I mean, I'm just a baby. Like, I'm like totally green, making mistakes all the time. But I think that if you love the connectedness of yoga, and that's why you're in the game, that's what you feel the value in life is, then this training and getting involved, being active, right, in our lives, it's well worth it. So I would just encourage anyone to do that. And the other thing that came to mind was, I would really love to see something on the outside for and I don't know if, there probably is, Bill, so you can maybe speak to that now or later or whatever, but I think I saw a YouTube video a while back where guys were meeting in the park. They were formerly incarcerated, and they were meeting in the park and doing yoga, and they were kind of being a support group for each other. Honestly, I would love to share yoga on a level with the guys who are interested, in a way that they could share with other people, inside or outside. That's already happening at the facility I'm at. These guys are sharing.
Yep.
And I was told by someone that's going to never happen. People are going to, haze them and make fun of them. And I think there is like an embarrassment, they have to be careful, in certain what they do. But these guys are getting together at 5 a.m., different points after their workouts, mindfulness breathing as they're in the chow line, all different kinds of things. They're doing it together. And so if we could, help facilitate their sharing of yoga on a big level, that would be like a dream to me. So I hope that, we work towards that. Inside, outside, I mean, like,
yeah.
like once, like that they have a support, like when like these guys are getting released too, like where, are they going to go to the studio and pay $25? No, like that is not, we need community classes that welcome everybody. And if some of these guys want to start sharing yoga in big ways, like I would love to help facilitate that.
Well, we should talk.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
All right.
That is absolutely, I think, a next step a next step for us that the community website and the pandemic and everything that the shifts that we've been making as an organization, I think are going to enable that in a way that it's been really challenging in the past, but we're getting there. And it's been a strategic build towards just that. And I've been thinking about like, man, we should just be putting the community yoga initiative events on the PYP event calendar and opening it up to the community. So we can talk about that in a
Okay, we will talk. We shall talk. And a nod to you guys, because I know you're working your tails off. Like the stuff I see coming out of PYP, the webinars and the trainings. I couldn't believe that. I checked the calendar just to see like where's like what am I doing? Where am I supposed to be? And I was like, oh my gosh, Bill's got this training and that training. I mean, you guys are like working your tails off behind the scenes, creating resources. I think Blair's done an outstanding job, with these interviews and keeping things together and getting the word out. It's so important. Being able to be an organizer is so important. So you guys, no criticism here. Like, I don't want to, but just how can I help? Like when that time comes, my number. So.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
It has been an absolute pleasure spending the morning with you. It's a morning here. Thank you. I mean, you have an angelic presence. Really.
Oh.
So just
thanks, Claire.
Thank you for leading us. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for showing up for yourself and your community and your family and all of the ways that you do. And thank you for serving. Like, thank you for being in surrender. So we are so lucky to have you as part of this community. And we are just so lucky to have you, period. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you both. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you.